Welcome back. Thanks for joining. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I do appreciate it. It's kind of a busy video today, and I'm jumping around a lot on stuff, so we'll get started here pretty quick. Basically, I am doing a quasi frame-off restoration. When I say quasi, I cut the body bolts out or remove the body bolts, whichever case may be. I jack the body up, put a couple blocks under, clean, paint the frame, paint those areas above the frame on the under pan of the body, and then I set it back down on the new body bushings and hardware. So it's not really a total frame off, but it's pretty close to frame off because the body's off the frame when I'm doing that. Just being held in different places on the frame with blocks. But the far more exciting part of the video is flipping the rear shackles for the leaf springs. It's going to give me about 4 to 6 inches of lift on the rear, and then I can worry about matching the suspension on the front once I get the rear done. But there's some geometry involved and some cutting and welding, so let's get started with that, and then later on we'll go on a field trip. Clean up the frame, repaint it. Then I have to clean up the floorboards, paint them green. Some of the bolts were not so cooperative, so they got the Sawzall routine. As I'm doing these body mounts on the bed, you can also see where the swing shackle mount is no longer there and the holes have been re-drilled. I kind of did all the body mounts and the shackle flip all at once. I did a few internet searches and found some poly bushings that were almost identical to the original equipment bushings, so those are what I used. So you can see I've got the upper and lower bushing installed for the new body mounts here and here, and then a bolt going through the middle. Something else I'd like to point out, I found these leaf spring bushing kits that had the right size sleeve, which goes inside and is the perfect size for the bushing and the bolt, and that'll keep it from being over tightened. Turns out the bed section of this was the easy part to do. There was only a few bolts, lift it up, go to town, paint, clean. The cab, on the other hand, there were a lot of spring-loaded bushings, a lot more weight, a lot more profile. This took a lot more time to clean up, paint, lift, move, and get those bushings reinstalled. But after a couple of days of messing with it, finished that headache. One of the things I'm going to try to do more and more as I'm doing these videos, when I get to something that I think is a little more technically in-depth, I'm going to try to go over it a little more thorough instead of glazing over it. Remember when we did the shackles on the FC, we flipped those as well, but we lengthened the upper springs and the spring pack to accommodate the right angle. We're going to do that a little different on this Army truck. I drew some pictures. This picture, and this picture are all the same. It's just different positions of your vehicle's spring load. This picture would be your leaf springs at its normal ride height without being flexed or at droop. This would be at droop, and this would be your leaf springs fully flexed. We'll get to these in a second. So when you're putting leaf springs together, they have a normal arch to them. You've got a swing shackle on one end, and you've got your fixed point on the other. Now you always want your swing shackle this direction or away from center, your center line being here up and down, because if it's ever this direction from center on droop, your spring could flip the shackle upside down and really create a bind problem. So you always want your shackle geometry to face away from center. Now this is at ride height, just driving down the road. There's no load on it, there's no droop to it, you're not four-wheeling. Now on full droop, say you're four-wheeling or dirt road or what have you, and this spring comes all the way down where your axle's off the ground, you still want your shackle this side of center. If it hits center or that side, you run the risk of that shackle flipping the other direction. Now you can put stops there to keep that shackle from flipping, but, whoa, lose my board there. But if it's going that direction, it's going to create a bind, it's creating a problem. It's not going to be good geometry for your leaf springs. Now, this leaf spring, say you're in a pickup and you fully load that thing to its maximum capacity and you literally flatten the leaf spring out. A completely flat leaf spring is the longest a leaf spring will get, so you want your shackle almost horizontal. It still has a little bit of an angle on it. You don't want your fixed point hitting the leaf spring either, and you really don't want your shackle to be hitting the frame either if the frame's up here. So on a flat leaf spring, you want that shackle is stretched as far as you can. These will give you the absolute proper leaf spring geometry for your load to let the spring do its job. Now, when you're getting into four-wheeling and stuff, I don't know if any of you have ever seen or remember the boomerang shackles that came out several years ago. Well, all this still applies, except a lot of those springs would take an incredible amount of droop compared to the factory spring. So when they droop down so far, they would kick that shackle past your 0 point of center, and then they would flip up and smack into the frame and bind up the rear suspension. So the guy that invented these just made them into a little boomerang. So what that does is even if moving that again, even if this lower shackle moves left of center, its fulcrum point is out here, so it's always going to bring that leaf spring back. Now, I know everyone's seen monster trucks and they've got a leaf spring that is a huge U-bolt, is basically what I call them. They're a leaf spring with such an arch in them that they will never attain anything close to a flat. They will always be arched. Those have nothing to do with real leaf spring geometry. All those are doing is lifting the chassis off of the axle so you can put monster tires on them. They ride like crap. They really don't do what a leaf spring's supposed to do, and that is flex and adjust your load as your load and the axle articulation work. So when you start talking about monster truck lift kits and those big super arch springs, they may or may not have any flex to them at all. I would never put those on anything. That's why I think now you see monster trucks and stuff like that using coilovers, because then you actually have a spring that'll work in that kind of a application. But I wanted to kind of cover this because even doing leaf springs, a lot of people do leaf springs because I can slap it in and just go, I don't have to think about the geometry. Well, there is still some geometry to leaf springs, and if you don't do it right, it's not going to ride right, it's not going to work right. So now that I've done my school tutorial, let's go put some leaf springs on. Okay, this is the shackle position on the 715. Now, I want to flip the shackle down to this position. Gives me a little more lift. However, when I flip it, because the springs are a fixed length, the shackle only comes to about this position. And in that position, when you articulate it, it could pop back up, create a binded, really weird problem. So I really need to move the shackle forward, and that'll put the position back here again. So that's what I'm going to do. I did discover this hole here is welded from the back side even after I pop the rivets out. I'm just going to mirror it forward, re-drill holes, which I've already done, and I'll attach that with bolts, and then I'll weld the back side again. Just a side note, the front spring hanger is built like the rear. It's plated, pinned through, kind of into a double shear. Again, you can see where I've moved the shackle holes forward. Once I had them all lined up, I reinstalled them using some grade 8 bolts, and then on the back side, you can see where that hole is where the pin comes through, and that's where it gets re-welded. So you can see down here, That's where I re-welded that lower piece, which is actually behind here now. It still keeps it in this main plate, so it's pretty strong. It's kind of a way of making it into a double shear. I did clean up and repaint the rear leaf springs. I also cleaned up and repainted the swing shackle for this. Now, just a side note, the brass bushings I did replace, and I'll show you how to do those later since they don't really make those anymore. But here's how the leaf spring and the shackle flip turned out. Well, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Got that shackle flip all done, so I'm pretty happy there. I think it'll work really well with the height and stuff I'm using on this truck. I'm also really happy that I'm done cleaning the underside of this. As much as I hate cleaning all that crap out, I feel really accomplished once it's got that nice new coat of paint and those new body bushings. Now everything is built from there. You know, some assembly required and batteries not included. So thanks again for joining. Throw something in the comments if you have a question or anything, and see you on the next video. Are we ready for an adventure today? First day in a while it's been this nice out, so we have a little bit of a plan going here. Today's field trip is Jeeping 101. A couple people in our local Jeep club do this a couple times a year. They get new people that have never done any off-roading, have went out and bought a Jeep or getting ready to buy a Jeep, and they kind of want to learn how to do this, which is really a good idea because it can save you thousands of dollars in oops and you know, your Jeep wanting to take a nap on the trail unexpectedly. It's also a good idea to be prepared and kind of give people an idea of what to do to be prepared, because not everything goes right when you're off-road. Sometimes you can spend the night on a trail. Yes, I've done that. No, it's not very much fun. Now, kind of a little reason I like doing this is when I started Jeeping 45 years ago, Jeeps weren't built like they are now. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money on my Jeep. In the first 3 years of four-wheeling, I had 33-inch tall tires on limited travel suspension, a short wheelbase, a 6-cylinder with a 4-speed, a 30 and a 44 differential, and they were open differentials, no lockers. So today you go out and buy a new Rubicon. First of all, you got a whole bunch of wheelbase, a whole bunch of suspension travel with very little work. You can put 37-inch tall tires on them. They come with a Dana 44 or versions thereof, locked, and a 4-to-1 transfer case. Well, that Jeep is very well equipped, probably better equipped than just about anything from back in the day. So you can get yourself in trouble with these if you're not paying attention or don't know what you're doing. Now, like any other sport, spend a little bit of time in learning how to do things the right way, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, or in a safe manner, and you can avoid a whole bunch of learning curve in damage to your vehicle, damage to yourself. You know, you got a $50,000 Jeep and, you know, go flop it over on a trail because you just didn't know the right way to approach an obstacle, and, you know, gets expensive real quick. If not just for you, your insurance, and then your insurance is going to get their money back one way or another. So I'm going to help them do this class today because it's a lot of fun, and I'm just, you know, there to help. So Luke and Carrie are the organizers of this event, and here they are. The twins have arrived. All right, I think we got about everyone here. This looks like a real big group, about a dozen Jeeps and a whole bunch of people, so it should be a fun day. As with any Jeep group, people start gathering around and talking, and once we knew we had pretty much the whole group there, Luke gave out some introductions and some instructions on how the day's events are going to work and how we're going to get to the initial site. Once that was done, we loaded up and headed out.
Welcome, you guys. My friend Dane.
From I-70, Grand Junction looks like kind of a surface of the moon area, but once you're out away from town, this is why I live here. Getting everyone to the Trailhead location in one group is always kind of tough with 10, 12 vehicles. You always have someone in the front, someone in the middle, and someone as a tail gunner. It's kind of like herding cats in a controlled manner. Nice little dirt road section going down into the playground where we'll have a really big rock slab to kind of get everything set up, organized, and start our day of instruction. We're going to do our first portion of this deal here.
Let's go over real quick. For instance, these are hubs to take off like a Dana 44 axle hub. These two are specific for Dana 44 for my rigs.
Right. If you know your rigs, it's a good idea to load tools to get you out and you need to fix something or whatever. Especially if you have something a little bit different than everybody else too.
A while, but they're just like, I'm going here. If you don't hear from me by 9 o'clock, you know where I am. You know, and I mean, it might sound stupid, but it's a good thing to do because you just never know what can happen.
And actually, if you are going to do that by yourself a lot, that Garmin InReach is a really good thing to have. That satellite, and you can buy the cheap package. I think it's like 11 or 12 bucks a month. And if you're out in emergency at that point, you don't care if it's going to call you.
You know, if you get a cut on your head, arm, wrist, anything, you know,
Come here.
be able to do a little bit of first aid with you for yourself.
A pull point on the front and the back of your rig.
Yes.
That's kind of a requirement, pretty much.
Yeah, that's another requirement for the Jeep Club. This is just one that slides into the rear receiver hitch, kind of like where you would hook up a tray. Well, that didn't sound good.
Just a mud flap drag a little bit.
steady throttle all the way through it. You're okay. Yep, you're okay. Yep, just let it spin.
More. There you go.
Just try to stay smooth as you come off. Don't try to stab your brakes. My bumper hit?
No. It's a good line there. Nice and easy.
Yeah, it's hard to
Perfect.
I think right is gonna feel better.
Okay.
See.
Looks like it's getting there.
Keep going.
Yeah. There you go. Oh, never mind. That's Josh. He knows what he's doing.
Doesn't feel good.
Now you're getting ready to engage the front, and your right front tire might hit just a skosh before your left. But once your front starts coming up here, your right rear will go down. So you're gonna have to just see how it feels. I mean, you can always back out of it.
But if I start to do that thing again,
I just back out of it then.
okay. I bumped it. What did I? Was that tires?
That was just your tires.
It felt like my bumper.
Huh.
'Cause I don't know what it feels like yet.
There's-
Just kind of roll through it. What's your air pressure at?
Yours might make it even easier. That was even easier. Nice. Little wheelbase makes a big difference. You can let it kind of crawl. A lot of them have been getting traction. Just let it turn to the right and spin a little bit and it'll find a sticky spot.
That didn't sound good.
Now you're probably gonna have to turn to the right a little bit and give it a bump but you're shorter wheelbase. Turn to the other right.
Military right.
Yeah, you're gonna have to bump it. The short wheelbase is getting you.
Man, that's going to need a lot of those too. Holy crap. Those tires are just incredible.
Yokohama's stick pretty good for being a DOT tire. Turn right.
Shouldn't slide too much more. Maybe a little
A little bit to the right and it'll drive right up.
There you go. Engine just kind of roll through. There you go.
Well, we got a lot of good feedback from everyone. It sounds like everyone had a really good time. And more importantly, everyone took something away from this. Some really good information on how to go four-wheeling. All in all, I think it was a good day. We'll see you next time. Thanks.